Welcome back, dear soul. If you found this video today, I need you to know it was not an accident. Somewhere inside you, there is a question you haven't been able to say out loud, a feeling you've been carrying in the early hours of the morning, when the world is asleep and your heart is wide awake, turning over the same thought again and again. This person can't stop loving you, but they feel they must stay away, and somehow, you already knew that. You felt it before anyone said it. You felt it in the pauses between their words, in the way they looked at you and then looked away, in the distance they created that never quite made sense, because everything else, told you they still cared. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share is not just psychology, it is the truth that lives underneath the silence, and it is time you heard it. There is a particular kind of pain the world has no proper name for. It is not the clean grief of being told you are not loved. It is not the straightforward ache of rejection, where someone looks you in the eyes and says, "I don't want this." No, this pain is far more complicated than that. This is the pain of being loved quietly, secretly, desperately, by someone who will not let themselves love you out loud. It is the experience of existing in a relationship that has no name, because it is too real to be nothing, and yet not allowed to become something. And if you have ever lived inside that experience, you know the confusion it creates is unlike anything else. Because you are not grieving a loss, you are grieving a presence. You are mourning something that is still alive, still breathing, still feeling everything, but refusing to move toward you. And that is a very specific, very lonely kind of suffering. Carl Jung once said that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves. But I would extend that wisdom further. Everything that confuses us about the way someone loves us, every contradiction, every moment of closeness followed by withdrawal, is not random. It is not cruelty. It is psychology. It is history. It is the architecture of a person's inner world, built long before you ever arrived in their life, shaping the way they experience love not as a simple emotion, but as something deeply entangled with their oldest wounds. When someone loves you and stays away at the same time, they are not sending you two messages, they are sending you one. And that message is this: I want you more than I know how to want anything, and that terrifies me completely. Think about the nature of deep fear, not the simple fear of a dark room, but the primal fear that lives inside the architecture of a person's soul. The fear of being truly seen, the fear of reaching for something and losing it, the fear of needing someone so completely that their absence would not just hurt, it would unmake you. When a person has been truly broken by someone they trusted completely, the nervous system learns a new language. It learns to read love not as safety, but as danger. And so the heart develops a split consciousness, one half reaching toward you, drawn to your warmth like a person starved of sunlight, and the other half pulling back, creating distance, manufacturing reasons to stay away. Not because the love is gone, but because the love is so real, so overwhelming, so terrifyingly present, that it feels like standing at the edge of a cliff. And they have fallen before, and the fall nearly destroyed them. I want you to consider, truly consider, what it must feel like to be that person. To love someone the way you love the feeling of coming home, and to look at that love and feel deep in your bones that you cannot have it. Not because the love isn't real, not because the other person is wrong, but because some old, frightened, wounded part of you genuinely believes that to reach for this is to invite catastrophe, that to need someone this much is to hand them the very instrument of your destruction. This is not manipulation. This is not drama. This is a human being living inside a psychological prison they may not even fully understand. Loving you with every breath they take and believing, at the deepest and most irrational level, that staying away is the only way to keep you both safe. Jung spoke about the concept he called the persona, the mask we wear to navigate the world, the constructed self that appears capable, unaffected, in control. And beneath it, he said, lives the shadow. All the desires and fears and needs we've buried because somewhere along the way we learned that feeling them too deeply was dangerous. This person who loves you and stays away, they have built a very strong persona. Perhaps they appear independent, self-sufficient, maybe even a little cold. But underneath that persona, there is a shadow that knows something entirely different. A shadow that knows exactly how much they need you. A shadow that carries your name like a secret, that has memorized the specific texture of your laughter, that reaches for you in the quiet hours and finds only silence. And the reason they stay away is not because the shadow isn't real. It is because the shadow is so real that the persona cannot survive admitting it. There is a pattern that appears again and again in the psychology of love, particularly in people who experienced what attachment researchers call insecure attachment. Children who grew up in environments where love was inconsistent, where the people who were supposed to be safe sometimes were and sometimes weren't. These children learn a devastating lesson. They learn that love is not a constant. They learn that the people you need most are also the people most capable of wounding you. And they learn, deep in the nervous system, in a way no amount of adult reasoning can fully override, to protect themselves from the very thing they need most. To love in fragments, to give just enough but not too much, to stay present but never too present, to care from a distance where the caring cannot become a vulnerability, cannot become the rope that pulls them under if the other person ever lets go. And here is the heartbreaking truth about that pattern, the one that makes you feel as though you are going mad, as though you must be imagining things. It is invisible. The person living inside it does not announce their wound. They simply withdraw. They pull back at the exact moment things are becoming beautiful. They go quiet precisely when the silence is most painful. And from the outside, if you don't understand what is happening beneath the surface, it looks like indifference. It looks like rejection. It looks like you are not enough. But you are enough. You have always been enough. What is happening has very little to do with your worth, and almost everything to do with their fear. There is a particular moment in this journey that I want to name directly, because many of you have already lived it. It is the moment you began to question yourself. The moment the confusion became so loud that you turned it inward and started to wonder what is wrong with you. Why your love, which is real and warm and given so freely, doesn't seem to be enough to break through the wall they've built. Why, no matter what you do, there is always this distance you cannot close, no matter how hard you reach. And in that moment, something deeply unfair happened. You began to carry their wound as though it were your failure. You began to shrink yourself, or to reach harder, to give more, to be more patient, as though the solution was simply to love loudly enough to drown out their fear. And neither worked, because neither was ever the true question. Jung believed that the relationship we have with another person is always, at some level, a mirror, a reflection of the relationship we have with ourselves. So the question this experience is asking you, the question beneath all the pain and longing, is this: what do you actually believe you deserve? Not the answer you give when someone asks at a dinner party, but in the quiet of your own heart, in your most honest moments, what do you believe you are worthy of receiving? Because here is something I have observed again and again in the psychology of love. We do not accidentally find ourselves entangled with people whose wounds mirror our own. The person who stays away while loving you often appears in the life of someone who, at some deep and perhaps unexamined level, is also a little afraid of being fully received, of being truly seen, of being loved so completely that there is nowhere left to hide. I am not saying this to wound you. I am saying it because it is the most liberating truth in this entire conversation. Because if this experience is partly a mirror, if the person who cannot fully come to you is reflecting something you carry about your own worthiness of complete love, then the transformation does not depend entirely on them. It depends on you. And that is not a burden. That is a doorway. That is the exact place where your power lives. Let me tell you a story. Not a real story, but a true one. Imagine a lighthouse, standing at the edge of the sea, lit every night without fail, sending its beam across the water, steady, constant, unwavering, available. And somewhere out on the dark water, a ship. The ship can see the light. The ship is oriented by the light. The ship feels safer knowing the light is there. But the ship never comes in. Night after night, the light burns. Night after night, the ship remains at sea, circling, approaching and retreating, always close enough to see the shore and never quite willing to land. And the lighthouse cannot move. It cannot go out to sea and drag the ship to harbor. It can only burn. The question I want you to sit with is not how to make the ship come in. The question is, how long are you willing to be the lighthouse? And is a lighthouse that is seen but never reached, is that the purpose you were put here to serve? Or is your light meant for someone who will actually come home? Love without action is a beautiful kind of cruelty, not intentional, not malicious, but cruelty nonetheless. Because you are not a statue in a museum meant to be admired from a distance. You are a living human being with a heart that is real, with needs that are valid, with a longing that deserves to be met. Not in silence, not in the whispered subtext of almost but not quite. You deserve to be chosen, not reluctantly, not fearfully, not halfway, but deliberately, consciously, with the full weight of someone's presence behind it. And the painful, necessary truth of this moment is that you must hold two things at the same time: compassion for this person's wound, and a clear-eyed honesty about what you need, and whether what you are being offered is actually enough for the life you are here to live. Jung identified what he called the wounded child, the part of the psyche that carries the earliest hurts, the oldest betrayals, the deepest fears. And he argued that this wounded child does not disappear with time. It does not age along with the body. It does not become more reasonable just because the adult mind knows better. It lives in the unconscious and continues to run the deepest programs of the emotional life, influencing who we love, how we allow ourselves to be loved, often without the person ever realizing it. This person who loves you and stays away, their wounded child is running a program that says love equals danger, that closeness equals loss. And until that program is examined, brought into the light, felt and grieved and ultimately transformed, no amount of love from you will override it. Because it was never installed by love. It was installed by pain. And it can only be uninstalled through the courageous, deeply personal work of confronting the original wound. This brings me to something important. Something easy to miss when your whole attention is focused outward on this person and their choices. The healing that is available to you in this experience does not require their healing. The growth that is possible for you does not require them to change. It requires you to. Not to change who you are, but to grow, to expand, to move through this pain in the direction of greater self-knowledge, greater self-respect, greater clarity about who you are here to become. Because this is what the great psychological and spiritual traditions all converge on. The relationships that wound us most deeply are our greatest teachers. And the lesson is always ultimately about ourselves. What does it mean to love yourself when someone you love cannot fully be there? It means allowing yourself to feel the grief of this, fully, without rushing past it or numbing it or intellectualizing it into something manageable. It means letting yourself cry if you need to cry. It means letting yourself be angry at the situation, at the cosmic unfairness of a love that is real on both sides, and still somehow isn't enough to bridge the distance. And then it means, when you have felt what you need to feel, beginning to redirect some of the energy you have been pouring outward, back toward yourself. Not as a strategy, but as an act of genuine self-devotion, as the beginning of a new promise you make to your own soul, that you will not wait indefinitely at a door that will not open, that your tenderness, your warmth, your enormous capacity to love, these are not a debt you owe to someone who cannot receive them. They are gifts you have to give, and they belong in the hands of someone who knows exactly how precious they are. And to the person who is staying away, if somehow these words find you, I want to speak to you too. Not in judgment, not in blame, in love. I know what you are doing feels like protection. I know the story you are telling yourself, that you are not ready, that you are too broken, that you will only hurt them, that it is better this way. And I want to hold that story gently and ask you, whose voice is that? Is it the voice of your wisdom, your genuine adult wisdom? Or is it the voice of the wounded child inside you, the one who learned that love was dangerous before they even had language to understand what love was? Because those two voices can sound remarkably similar, but one is protecting you from genuine danger, and the other is keeping you from the very life you came here to live. There will come a moment, perhaps it has already come, when the cost of staying away becomes greater than the fear that is keeping you there. When the silence you have chosen becomes louder than the voice you have been suppressing. when the distance you have maintained begins to feel less like safety and more like a prison you built for yourself with your own hands. In that moment, you will have a choice. You can stay inside the familiarity of the wound, inside the story that says, this is the careful, responsible thing to do. Or you can do something that requires every ounce of courage you possess. You can move toward what you love. Not with certainty, not with a guarantee, but with the simple, raw, terrifying, life-altering decision to stop protecting yourself from joy. The door is not locked from the outside. It never was. The only lock is the one you installed yourself, and the key has been in your hand the entire time. Now let me draw everything together into something you can carry with you after this video ends. What is the one thing this experience has been trying to teach you about yourself? Not about the other person, about you, about the way you love, the way you wait, the way you measure your own worth through the lens of someone else's availability, about the distance between the love you are able to give and the love you have allowed yourself to receive. Sit with that question, not to answer it right now, but to let it work on you, slowly, persistently, in the background of your daily life, rearranging things, making space for a truth you are perhaps only just becoming ready to hear. Because here is the deepest truth of this entire conversation, the one I have been building toward from the very first word. Love is not scarce. I know it feels that way. I know when you love one specific person with this specific depth, it feels impossible that any other love could ever be equivalent. But the love you are capable of giving, the depth and warmth and generosity of what lives in your heart, that is not finite. It is not used up by having been given to someone who could not fully receive it. It is, in fact, paradoxically, beautifully, expanded by it. You are larger now than you were before you loved this person. You understand more. You feel more. You have navigated terrain that most people never approach. And that largeness, that expanded, weathered, deepened capacity, is the beginning of something. Not the end. Never the end. You are not too much. You are not someone who loves too hard or feels too deeply. You are someone who arrived too early, or they arrived too late, or the timing was imperfect in some way that life sometimes arranges, not out of cruelty, but out of its own inscrutable wisdom. And the love that is meant for you, the love that will not turn away, that will not manufacture distance, that will not love you secretly while refusing to love you out loud. That love is not a fantasy reserved for the lucky few. It is as real as the love you are already capable of giving. And it is looking for you with the same intensity you have been carrying in your heart. This is what I know. This is what I believe. Not because the world is simple or love is guaranteed or wounds heal easily, but because I have seen what becomes possible when a person stops fighting for the love that cannot come toward them and starts walking toward the love that is already on its way. Something opens. Something that was locked becomes available. And it begins not when the other person changes. It begins when you do. When you decide, with the full, clear, courageous authority of your own soul, that you deserve to be fully loved. Not partly, not conditionally, not from a distance, fully, completely, in the light, out loud. This person can't stop loving you, and they feel they must stay away. Both of those things are true, and both of those things are, in their deepest sense, about them, not about you. Your worth is not measured by their fear. Your love is not diminished by their distance. Your story is not finished by their silence. You are standing at a threshold, not the end of something, but the beginning. And what waits on the other side is not loss. It is you, more whole, more clear, more deeply yourself than you have ever been. Step forward, not for them, for you, for the life that is waiting, and for the love that, unlike this one, is willing to wait right back.